Welcome back to the podcast. Hopefully, you guys out there are having a great day. I know I am. I'm in a new environment. I don't know if you guys can see any of the listeners out there. I'm in a new environment completely. I'm chilling here. It's snowing outside. We're going to have a fun day today. So I figured, today's podcast is going to be pretty wild. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about was new environment, because I talked about it yesterday's podcast. I talked more about, how to deal with a new environment and how it actually helps, how it's one of the first rubrics and pillars in Atomic Habits, a fantastic book. And if you don't know who I am, by the way, I'm a 19-year-old businessman, entrepreneur who started a business selling beats to rappers, started an e-commerce business selling beats to rappers, and it's going well so far. I had some sales calls yesterday. Today I was supposed to, the person rescheduled, right? It's like you roll your eyes like, all right. But yeah, new environment. Let's talk about that. So with the new environment, what comes with new environment? How do you create one that's susceptible to helping yourself, right? And how did I create one that was susceptible to helping me? How I did that was it was a start of making sure that every piece around me is built so I could just sit and go. And once I started, when I first started, it was just so annoying. And one of the biggest things I think that helped me was starting right when I woke up. I've talked about this before, and I used to not be able to do that. Starting right when I wake up, around when I started this journey, around day one, January 1st, around January 1st, I actually was not doing great in terms of that, in terms of dopamine wise. I didn't want that. So I would go on a walk around my house. And I would walk. I walked about 30 minutes every day, and I would do the walk right before just to set my mind straight and go for it. And then I cut the walk because I was like, I want to go to end earlier, But so when I did that, it helped my habit so much because I would just go, get out. And even if I felt the worst pain of I don't want to leave, I want to stay in bed, I want to chill, I still went out and still did it because it was just for habit's sake. And this environment, being in this new environment, having all these things around me from when I was younger, whereas the other place I was at wasn't quite like that for me. It wasn't quite like, there weren't as many memories, This is the place where I started it all, Isn't that cool? Isn't that awesome? This is the place I literally, all these little things, even this thing, if anybody not listening, if anyone not looking, because you can't, you're a listener. I'm pointing at my my furniture, my drawers. It's even that, there's some scripts, screenwriting stuff in there probably. You know what I mean? Everywhere. The comic books, this place is so classic to me. And I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to be doing this work here for the first day ever, actually, doing this work here. And it was really nice. Sunrise was beautiful. Sunrise was absurd. I've never really experienced a sunrise that great. It looked beautiful. I was enamored. I was I'm so glad I'm up this early. It made it worth it. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and this, I don't think I talk about this enough at all. I'm seeing the amount of listeners that I have. I don't see, obviously, who's listening exactly, but I see the amount of listens that I have on my podcast. And honestly, if you're out there listening to this podcast, thank you. You know what I mean? I know that I at least get one view a video, 2 views, 3 views. Sometimes it goes pretty high, but thanks. And I really appreciate you guys out there. You guys are, I hope, I can actually help with whatever it is that, you want help with, or not even that. It's I hope I fulfill my role in your day or in a little portion of your life, in the micro, right? So that's something nice. And I think it's really cool that I thought I was just not going to have no listeners till episode 50-ish. I didn't care. I was all right, I'm going to have no listeners. Let me just go to 50 days. And instead, I did. I did have listeners. You guys are out there. You guys are actually listening to the things I'm saying. Some of you, and sometimes I promote it on YouTube. So I don't know if you guys come from YouTube or not, but thanks. I really do appreciate it. It's nice to look at every day and see the amount of views I get. Thank you so much. So I want to talk about something I think people actually talk about way, way, way too much, and it's snakes. They're like, oh, that person was a snake to me. You know what I mean? Oh, this person's a snake. I feel like this was really said in high school. When I used to do high school theater, I saw this a lot. So I would see a lot of people be like, oh my God, that person's a snake. Now looking at it, I'm kind of like, for me, who was kind of like a snake in my life that I saw that double crossed me, right? That tricked me, that lured me in to do something that wasn't going to help me, right? And what I realized the biggest snake was to me was in fact me. I was the biggest snake. And, it's not fun being the biggest snake to yourself. It's not fun saying all these things, but it really is true. I think I was the biggest snake to myself. It really hurt. There were moments I was like, I still look back to this day that I'm like, I lured myself in to a place to fulfill a goal that I didn't even want. Or maybe I wanted, but didn't even think. But it's not even like the goal that I wanted. It was not thinking at all. There was no goals. It's free time. I'll get back to my goals when I'm done. But independent of how you feel, the goal is the goal. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. 10 years from now, it's going to happen. How you look is obviously your choice and my choice. But I always thought there was like free time and I'll get back to my goals. But you're not getting back to anything. Right? So I had to realize I'm not getting back to anything. What I'm getting back to was the thing I could have been doing, obviously. What I mean by all this, it sounds like I'm stating the obvious, but it really is true, where my goals, I said, were to become this, famous producer back then. That was my goal, to be this famous rapper, whatever. That goal for me, if it was my goal, then I wouldn't use the free time, right? Because I would realize that it's not free time, and I'd actually just do my goal, right? Try to achieve my goal, at least get one step closer. But I didn't. So now it's like, well, what the fuck? It's like, why did I do that? Why was I the biggest snake in my own story? I'm the biggest villain in my own story, for sure. Maybe you guys relate to that, but you're your own biggest villain. And it's like, that's too bad, man. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I wasn't. I wish I didn't do that. I wish I would have helped myself out, and maybe that would have encouraged me to help others more. But instead, I was hurting myself. So what would I do to others? I'll give you a hint. Hurt. It's like, it's true. Maybe that's what's true. If someone's trying to hurt you, it's because they've been hurt or they're hurting themselves. If they're helping themselves, most likely they'll do what they can to help. That's interesting. Huh. I think those two things really do really relate. I was actually talking to my brother yesterday about one of these things where it was acting, I think, is like a relationship. Where, like, in a relationship, there's so much baggage, right? And you're not going to say I regretted that relationship. Same with acting. You're not going to say I regretted doing that role. But it was an experience that was really tough. Right? It was an experience that you're not going to come back from easily. Yeah? So, at least in my opinion, with relationships that I've seen, it's like, you're not going to come back from that easily. You want to break. I want to break just so I don't have to deal with all that and go through the process again. That's kind of how acting is, because you have to be vulnerable in both situations. To be a really good actor, you have to be really vulnerable and show a different light of you. And same for being in a relationship, you have to be really vulnerable and intimate. And obviously with acting, different roles call for different things, but I would say the same thing for relationships. Different women call for different things too. Some women there's less intimacy, right? Some women, there's more arguments, yeah? Or it's just different, and vice versa. So, I think this is like, it's really true. It's an interesting concept where it's like acting is like having a relationship. And that depleted feeling I get after I just did a role, and I'm like, whew, it's not regret quite, right? It's not quite pain. It's just like, unless the relationship ended bad, then that's a different story. But which most relationships do, if we're going to be honest. If you probably ended bad. I want to tell a story now. It's story time. And I want to talk about a story about sledding. Because I don't know if you guys experience, a lot of people live in hot weather. They don't experience the privilege of sledding. And I'm about to do it today. So how timely. I'm about to do it in like half hour. I'm going to go sledding. And I remember there was one time we went sledding with my mom's old friend and my cousin. And we all went sledding. It was a big family event, and we go sledding, and there was like a pool on the sled. Like, this is a really funny story. There's a pool on the fucking path. So my brother and cousin get in the pool and go like an inflatable pool, kind of. You know, but way big, like 5 feet, 4 feet tall. And they get in it and then just go down this, massive hill. And it was so funny because it was like, where does that live? Where is that supposed to be in our lives when we think about discipline? I think about that story. That story brings me joy. It brings me back to the time that I was like, nice. So where does it live in discipline? What is that part of us? Because even art falls into discipline for me. But what about situations like that? Do I regret it? Of course not. Can I learn to regret it? Of course not. Why would I learn to regret that? Why would that be helpful? Why would that be helpful for me to regret that? I think I'll be successful either way. I think I can be successful either way. So when I think about stories like that, and hopefully we make more memories today with the sledding. And, for my mom, and I mean, this is big, her friend had, the friend that we went sledding with, who she hadn't seen in probably almost a decade. He ended up passing away around a year later. And that was the last time we saw him. And not to say that's the moral of the story, but it's like, damn, what a good last time. So that's a good last time, man. It's not a bad last time. Because he was someone that didn't really leave the house a lot. He was more of an introvert type of guy. And that was the first time I ever met him. And so he was an introvert type of guy. And so he didn't leave the house. So my mom told him, let's go sledding. And he said, yes. My mom was like, really? You want to do this? And he was like, yeah, fuck it, let's go. And like I said, so not a bad last time. Seeing him in a light that was interesting, because we think about death, or at least I think about death sometimes. I think about it creeping up on certain people. I think to myself, well, how is it? What do I want my last, memory to be? Discipline? Do I want it to be fun? What are we on earth to do? And you start asking, like, what's the meaning of it? But it really is interesting to think, the last time I saw this man, he was having the time of his life sledding in a pool. So it's like, well, what's my most interesting thing? Well, what will be some of the last times? Because they're going to happen. Are they just going to be depressive? Are they just going to be, it's going to be a random conversation? I mean, in the world, in the history of the universe, how many times, not even universe, like when we started like speaking as a society, as a planet, when humans really took over, right? And the question that I bring up is, well, what exactly what went down? I mean, how many people died on just a normal conversation, or after a normal conversation, just a heart attack? How many people? I mean, the possibilities and the amount of stories are probably so interesting. I always said that about people in general, is that when you're in a concert, you're in a big space of people. It's like being in a library. There's so many stories here. There's so many stories to tell. There's so many places to take inspiration from. And even if the people are idiots, especially if they're idiots, those are the best stories. Let's be honest. So this is how I started to use people who I found to be idiots, especially back then. I'd use them as inspiration, not just for characters, but for perspective. Once I understood their perspective, and they knew I understood their perspective, and that made me happy that they knew I understood. Right? And that made them, it all was just like this feedback loop that was really awesome. So I find that to be interesting. Another topic I wanted to talk about in this Andy Elliott video I was watching, he also said something interesting about David Goggins. Is that there's a difference between David Goggins, right? And there's a difference between that and Goggins. If you don't know who David Goggins is, he's a runner, athlete. He was in the Navy SEALs. I mean, he's a motivational speaker. Like he's up there for motivational speakers and someone who really understands discipline on another level. And he was like, he does talk about this a lot, about being Goggins and going and flipping frame into Goggins. And I find it to be so weird because I'm like, wait a minute. So he went from being, so what do you mean? It's like a double personality? Who is it exactly that's Goggins? It started to really, begs the question, what exactly does this all mean for this guy? Is it a clinical condition? What exactly is happening? Is it spiritual? Is Goggins, the idea of Goggins is the person that runs, that makes him do all these things in his own head, right? It's that side of him that when it comes out, it comes out. I feel like we all have different sides of us. It's not like Goggins is a person. It's not like a double personality necessarily, because we all have different sides. We have the extroverted side of us. We have the stay at home and watch a movie side of us, right? So he has a side of him, and we all have this side too, I think, the discipline side. Especially if you're in business or you're trying to make a career out of nothing, right? You're trying to make a career out of just sheer just scraping. Whether it's scraping leads or meeting new people through networking, right? We all have this disciplined, motivated side of us. And so he would just reach in, grab Goggins to help David out. You know what I mean? Because David is someone that likes comfort, that likes eating a lot of food, right? That likes doing things that hurts himself. The idea of David. But Goggins, which is his last name, Goggins, this person that's disciplined, makes him gets him to that place. Interesting. So then it's like, well, what is that for me? Right? And where does art fit into all of this? I always think that, because I'm like, no one talks about where art fits into all this, because art is not, it's a discipline. I could procrastinate art. You don't really procrastinate video games. You know what I mean? You don't really procrastinate taking drugs or going to the club. You don't call it procrastinating. You can procrastinate art and getting that script done. I'm procrastinating because I don't want to write. It happens all the time. Writers are big procrastinators. It's like a trope at this point, right? It's a stereotype. So now, this obviously begs the question of, well, where does art fit into all this? And how do we know if we're in art, if we should be Goggins or we shouldn't be? My take is, and my perspective is, as doing art, is it's both. Because art can't be fake, it can't be falsified, whereas business can. Business can be fake. And I don't know, that's not really that much of a hot take, I know, but it's true. Business can be completely fake. You can completely lie to your customers. And not just lie, you can be a little bit ingenuous, get a white lie. That's what I mean. White lie to make money. Selling this product this way to make more money. Because the goal in business is not to create the best product, it's to create the product that gets the most money long term. Right? For quantity and quality. Right? The most money, quality, for the longest amount of time, quantity. Whereas with art, it's not necessarily about the money. You can make it about the money because art is so lucid. Or rather, it's like water. It's something we all do. That you can make it profitable. Of course you can. And so people do that, but then that, I think, that's different than art. That's different than the truth. And the art is the truth. That's all art is. The idea of like being an artist is just a truth teller. You know what I mean? Someone that doesn't lie. And at least doesn't lie to themselves. You know what I mean? Someone that at least has the decency to not lie to themselves. I mean, isn't that interesting? I want to end on this last topic, and it's a bit of a breakdown of this song by Bruno Mars. Everyone knows it. His breakout song, Billionaire. I used to listen to that song like, oh, every time I close my eyes. You know what I mean? I think about it, I'm like, yes. I see my name in shining lights. It's like, yeah, I totally see my name in shining lights. I totally see this. I see this. This person that I could be where everybody looks up to me. And now when I hear that song or I think about that, I actually kind of just like, yeah. It doesn't really matter to me. Isn't that weird? It doesn't really matter to me. I don't really see my name in shining lights anymore. I see family as something far larger than that. And if you do see your name in shining lights, that's not bad. But for some reason, I personally lost that. I wonder exactly why. Because a billionaire to me is what we were saying before. To be a billionaire through my art means the art may have to be less to sell. Because we'll have to sell it. That's how I sell my beats. I sell art. Do I sell art that has the most truth? No. Do I sell the most justified art? No. But I sell art, hopefully, that can make the most money. Because that's my goal right now. So being a billionaire and seeing my name in shining lights, that's it? Well, what do you do after you're a billionaire? You're just going to hang out? That's it? You're just going to dunk it on Obama? It's like, that's all you're going to do? For me, I do the money and the whole billionaire side of it. For me, obviously, I'm probably not going to be a billionaire, but that side of it to me is so that I could start my family, so that I could actually create a sustainable living and be someone at least to look up to for a child. So on that note, I'm going to end the podcast here. I hope you guys enjoyed and have a great rest of your day. See you next time.